good one? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This will be our start. About the time I say that, ain't that bad. Morning, folks. Want to welcome you to another edition of westernbass.tv, instructional videos here on the California Delta. We're up in the northern portion of the Sacramento River fishing for smallies today. We're going to be out throwing some crankbaits, some jigs, and showing you a little bit about this fishery we got up north. It's a fishery that not too many of us get an opportunity to come up and see, and it's one that we should all be up here fishing. Nice little smallmouth. That's a start. Okay, so now now we get to play. One of the things we like to do when we're up here fishing for these smallies, one of the key things on this northern part of the river is fishing these areas along the bends and on the insides and back sides of these points where you don't have any current. You can see we've got the main river channel coming down. We're up in Steamboat today. We've got the main river coming down, and we've got this point that comes out, creates a little break. We've got a little bit of grass in here. Smallmouth on this river aren't known for hanging around the grass. They feed predominantly on crawdads, and we don't find a lot of crawdads hanging around in this grass, but we just come through here and try this little point, and we found a little bit of grass on here, and we actually come right out and got a nice little fat chunky keeper to start the morning off. We're throwing some crankbaits up here today. Generally with these crankbaits you can just get on a bank, put the trolling motor down, and just go. When I'm fishing up here, I like to concentrate in that area from about 6 to 7 feet off the bank. You've got a series of ledges throughout most of this portion of the river. It's a little different than our river down in the north, where this is the old part of the old main river system, and you can see up along the banks here that the banks are much higher and they're a lot steeper. Today I'm starting off a little Lure Jensen speed trap. It's the 1/8 ounce, 1/4 ounce speed trap. This is the larger one. A little crawdad color, a little bit of orange. We got a little bit of stain in the water. Give these fish a little something to look at. They can pick that orange out a little better. I use a series of crankbaits when I'm up here, generally in the crawdad patterns. It'll catch you most fish. That crawdad will catch the bigger fish up here. Like I mentioned, it is the primary food for us. We got a lot of rocks. Unlike the main river down in where we're fishing for largemouth, up here you got rocks that come all the way down. They'll come down out to about 10, 12, 14, even into 20 foot in some places. So I'm always up here throwing crawdad colored baits. You can catch them on spinner baits, you can catch them on top water, but your better quality fish are going to come up here throwing these crawdad baits. And I like throwing the jigs and throwing this crankbait. It's a lot of fun to get up here and catch these smallies. You'll catch a lot of small fish up here, and then you keep pounding and keep pounding. Eventually you're going to start getting into those schools of 3-pounders when you get in the right kind of area. Big one. We want to start with this one. No, I don't want to start with this one. And I got him this time. He's a giant. Another little guy. lot of little fish like this on this river. That actually was. We'll start off. Oh, you see that one underneath it? Smallie. That's a little fish. One of the things I always like to do when I'm up here cranking is I like to make really, really long casts, which differs a lot from when you're down there fishing those largemouth and you're trying to pinpoint. These fish are out here in this open water, hanging and roaming up and down these rocks, and many times you really want that crawdad, that crankbait, to be banging on that rock. There's one right there, little guy. But you want to make those really, really, really long casts. We've caught a whole bunch of little fish like that since we come off that point. We're still on the little point back here. Little guy, real little smallmouth. But it's real important, make those long casts, get that bait way out there and then starts working down. Now, a lot of times these fish will be right up on the bank. You'll throw that in there in the first couple turns, they'll eat it right away if they're up there really aggressive. But most of the time, those better quality fish are going to be 6, 7, 8, 10 foot off the bank, and about 7, 8 foot of water, and you need to be able to get down to them. Making that long cast will allow you to get down to those fish. Now you'll see coming up here, we got a little situation on this bank ahead of me where you've got little points within this big point. These are really key kind of areas to look for when you're up here, because they provide little current breaks for these fish. That little point and cove that you see coming up ahead of us, it'll be like that all the way out to about 8, 10 foot of water, and those fish will kind of hang on those little secondary points. We're going to get up here and see if we can't find somebody hanging on this little eddy up here. I'm getting a lot of bites today, almost every cast. I got a little fish whacking this crankbait, and unfortunately they're not, it's kind of early in the morning, and those little better quality fish don't get real active till the sun gets up and starts warming these banks up. There's one. Well, he spit it again. Coming right off that little point up there. See if we can catch that fish. Boy, I mean, just every cast, bang, bang, bang. They're just little small fish. But that's the beauty of this river up here. There's so many fish. You can come up here in this north end of the Sacramento River. We're up in the upper reaches of Steamboat right now, working our way out to the main river. I like fishing the main river to catch those really, really good, those 3 to 5 pound smallmouth. Tend to hang out in that main river. It's a lot deeper up there, and they got a lot more breaks and so forth that they can get on down the ledge. And sometimes, like what we have today, this time of year, we got quite a bit of current coming down through here, and the larger fish don't get real active and aggressively feeding when the current's really ripping, so you got to really key on those little breaks that they're sitting on. This particular bank, there's one right there. That's a little better fish, maybe. He kind of tugged. That one just kind of grabbed it. There he goes. Look at that. Cooch's quick release, folks. There we go. We've changed things up a little bit here. I'm now starting to throw one of my favorite jigs up here. Again, we've got on a little inside bend. It's just a little guy right there. But I've gone and changed up. I like throwing jigs up here on these, as I mentioned, these fish up here like crawdads. I got an old R&B Smallie jig here. It's a little 1/4 ounce jig with frog hair. We put a little Uncle Josh piece of pork on there. And these lighter jigs up here work a lot better, because you can throw them in there with this current. They just kind of float and settle right down to those fish. I'll throw a variety of jigs, but I think my most productive jig up here has been this little 1/4 ounce bait, because you can throw it down and just work it right along the edge and bounce it right down with the current. And that's one of the things that you got to do when you're up here, is you want to fish that bait, throw it up ahead of you, and fish it down current. As you notice, I'm going into the current today, as I do when I'm up here most of the time. And I'll throw it up, let that thing sit. It hits the bottom, and then just kind of lift it and pull. Let it settle down, lift it and pull. Let it settle down, lift it and pull, and eventually that bait will come right down into the strike zone where those fish are sitting. And most of these fish that I catch on the jigs up here are in about 7-8 foot of water. This little jig, because it's such a smaller jig, I am throwing it on a spinning rod today. Using 14-pound fluorocarbon line. It allows me to feel that bite a little better than say a monofilament or a braided line. And unlike some of my jig fishing when I'm down fishing for largemouth, up here you can use this pork year-round. They'll eat this little pork bait with that little Uncle Josh 101 pork frog on there year-round. Another key thing when you're up here fishing for these smallies, you can see coming up we got this little pumping station. These are the kind of places where you're going to find the big ones, especially when you've got a piece of wood that's sitting up in there. And you'll have to make repeated casts, but I'll always cast to the downside of these pumps and make 4 or 5 casts in there. Look at here. That's a good one. Very nice little. We changed up on our crankbaits. It's getting a lot of smaller fish. That's a little better quality fish. We're out on the main Sacramento River now. Nice, you can see this fish. He's really feeding heavily on crawdads. He's got a full belly in there. Nice solid pound, pound and a half fish. We've changed up a little bit on our crankbaits. I've gone from the speed trap to throwing what is my favorite up here. It's the old Rebel crawdad. This one's the molten green. A little orange on the body. Still got that orange, but I went to something that had a little bit more green on it. We're out in the main Sacramento River now, a little just above Cortland. And we got a little deeper banks out here. This area tends to hold a little better quality fish. And what we're keying on are the back sides of these pumps, where we've got a little bit of a current break. And it's these pumps, especially where you have wood, where you're going to find those much better quality smallmouth up here. One of the other keys with this particular bait is to slow it down. I was fishing this speed trap a little faster to try and get it down. This one's got a little deeper diving bill, so it gets down there a little easier. We're sitting out here right on this particular ledge. There's a ledge that comes off a lot of this levee up here, and we're about 15 feet off the bank. We're sitting in 18 foot of water, and I'm just kind of cranking parallel right up in that 7 to 8, 10 foot range along these rock levee walls. Is rock. But what you're looking for is little subtleties in the bank. Now you can notice down this bank here, you can see where we've got the trees, and then right up ahead of us, you can see you've got a section where you've got new rock growth, where they've laid some rock down. You can also see further down the section, the river channel here, you can see there's a big, large area where they've really shored that bank up with new rock. And that, this time of year, can be a very strong pattern up here, getting up and fishing all of that new rock. I'm not sure what it is with that new rock that provides these fish with the food source versus the older, dirtier rock. I mean, that might be the thing, is that that area around those rocks, the water's a little cleaner. But many times you'll come up here and you can just get on that particular pattern, that new rock pattern. You run this river and you find all those little sections where you've got that new rock, goes all the way up the bank. You'll notice these banks up here, unlike the normal delta section down in the main river where we fish for the largemouth, it only goes 10 or 15 feet. This thing goes 30, 35, 40 feet up the bank. And those rocks extend way out here too. And that's what makes this fishery up here a little easier. You know, when we left Big Break this morning and drove up here and launched, we had a pretty good breeze, but we've gotten up here today, and because of the length and the height of these levees, we're really well protected down here on this river today fishing, so it makes it a lot more pleasant. Another little guy, but you notice we come down all that bank, we hit this new rock, all of a sudden, bang, little smallmouth. Got that one on a 1/2 ounce football head jig. Just swimming and bouncing it down the rocks. There's another bite. It's all too typical. Now we come up to this big area here. And we're coming down through here. There used to be some old docks down in here. We've got an awful lot of wood and big pylons in the water here. And these big smallmouth like hanging out on this wood normally. Right now today they don't seem to be on it. You can see on this levee, this is where a lot of this levee is built. Down below us, you can see up on this bank how it comes down. And then there's about a 6-foot ledge that comes out, and then it drops down another 20 feet to the water line. That's the way this levee is built, all the way down. And right about where the water line is here on this one, you got about a 4-foot drop, and then it flattens off, and it comes out and it drops again another 15, 20 foot down to the next level. We're sitting in about 19 foot as it is right now, and we're looking to check. I'm checking both that 4-foot and about that 12, 14 foot ledge down there, looking for those fish sitting on that ledge. We got nice little current break on this new rock. This little area, it's a little deeper, right up on the bank. Kind of difficult to get those crankbaits down there. Typically with these smallmouth, you got to throw those smaller crankbaits to catch them. You start throwing the big Normans and the Poes and so forth, which allow you to get a little deeper. They're just too big of plugs for these smallmouth to bother eating. And now we got one of them. Oh! God, did you see that fish? Oh, that was one. That was one of those big ones, folks. Coming right on the backside of this pylon right here. That was one of them 3-4 pound smallmouth. Part of the problem with these fish throwing this crankbait, a lot of times they'll just grab it. They won't eat it real good. That was one of the fish we were looking for right there. Not a big one, but he was sitting right in there behind that log. That little fish got me all tied up. Believe it or not, it's a little largemouth. Oh, feisty little guys. Just got him barely hooked on the bottom of the chin. A little pound and a quarter smallie up here, sitting right off that little point in the backside of this little bowl right here. Sitting up in there rooting on them crawdads. Pretty little fish up on this river. Pretty little fish. And that fish, I mean, that's typical of where you're going to find them. You have a little outcropping coming in there. That fish, man, he hit that thing so doggone hard, there was no doubt. A lot of the fish that I've been getting this morning, they've just kind of been coming up and tapping it and tapping it. That one and the one I had before really hit that crankbait hard. And you'll find that'll start to happen up here. As you start getting a little further into the day and the sun starts getting up and starts warming up these rocks, these fish will get a lot more aggressive and they will hit that crankbait real hard, like to jerk your arms off. We found the right bait. There's one of them nice. Come on. You gotta clamp down. Boy, that fish is clamped down on that. There you go. Open up, baby. There's one of them nice 2-pound smallies out of the river. What we've done, turn him loose. He got a little bit of crankbait in there. We've changed up from the crawdad into fishing a little smallmouth colored bait here, and since doing this, had about 5 or 6 fish grab it when we were going for the longest spell. We weren't getting anything at all, so we got off that brown crawdad, changed up, and all of a sudden now we're catching fish. There he is. Little smallie, little guy. You can see that color, that crankbait's really kind of a smallie pattern. It's got that little bit of blue hue in it. Seems to be what they're feeding on right now. So maybe these bigger smallies are, maybe they're feeding on the small fry from their own. Yep, we just got this little bank right here. There's a bunch of fish up here feeding. We've got you can see, we're in a little, this much smaller fish here, but we're in a little area of this river where there's this big bend. Certainly the crankbait we're using right now to catch these fish is a smallmouth pattern. There's another one. This is a good fish. This is a much better fish. We're going to need the net on this one. If I get this one up, hey, he's got that crankbait real good. This is a good one. Easy boy. These river smallies, they do fight. Yes. There's one of them solid. Nice. 2.5, 2 3/4 pound smallies up here in this delta. Nice, pretty clean fish. Solid green in color. Just a real nice fish.